Hey, before we dive into this week's message, I want to let you know that as a church, we want to be Love Unlimited. And the way that we do that is we worship, serve, and grow. And when it comes to that serve piece, we want to give you a new opportunity to figure out what you love doing. Whether it's, man, I am just so good at lawn care, or I could lift a couch if somebody was moving, or I love art. I love creating spaces. I'm good at technology. I can do photo, video, stuff like that. Different things that give you life. We want to put those into practice when we have needs come our way and allow you to serve the church. So in this next portion, there's going to be a QR code. I want you to fill out this form. Tell us what you love to do. What fills your bucket? What fills your cup? What you've enjoyed doing in the past. And when a need comes our way, we'll reach out to you, see if it's a good fit. And it could be you and a group of students. It could be you and some coaches, some staff, whatever it is. But we want to bridge this gap between needs in our community, needs in our church, and you, and how God has gifted you and what you have to offer the kingdom of God. So take a moment, pause, hit this QR code, fill out the form, let us know how you love serving, and we'll move on from there. Okay, I have a burp that's right here. Told you. There it is. Now we can begin. Here in January, we are starting a new series called Choose Your Own Adventure. And the whole idea is this: the decisions we make determine where we end up. And nobody starts an adventure without being honest with themselves. They got to know whether they are ready for it, whether they've trained for it, whether they're prepared for it, if they have the skills that it takes, if they have the self-awareness it takes to go on this journey. In 2019, I got to go on this super fun trip with my parents and my wife. We went to Yosemite and went to a bunch of national parks and stuff. It was just great. And along the way, we had a really great hike. We stumbled upon a hike called Yosemite Falls, which was just amazing. Like, we literally ended the hike standing in the waterfall that was falling 3,000 feet into the valley floor. It was nuts. And so we were feeling pretty, confident the next day. And this was like day 5 of the vacation, so we were already exhausted. But I found on the internet that there's this trail that goes from the foot of El Capitan, and you literally kind of like trace the front of it, and then you go 10 miles around it, and then you end up on top of it. And I'm like, I saw the film Free Solo, you might have too. I've seen the guy climb up it. I just want to skip the whole climbing, almost dying thing. I'm gonna walk around the backside, get the same view. Perfect. So we head out on this trail. And it wasn't a trail. There really was no trail. So I like hiking, but the kind of hiking I do is fancy walking. I'm not a survivalist. I don't bring a fire starter thing. I don't have a knife. There's nothing about me that would get us through a night if we got lost. Okay, so we're heading up this trail, and it's no trail at all. There's like limbs down, looking at the map and saying well, the trail's right here, we're on it, but this doesn't look like a trail. And as we're walking, we're getting farther and farther away from where all the other people are in Yosemite Valley, and just wandering. And we're seeing animals standing on the trail. The animals are looking at us going what are you doing here? Why are you here? Nobody else is here. And I started to remember the day before, there was a park ranger who was trying to get people away from a grizzly bear and her cub. So his mama bear, and she's like, hey, please don't come any closer. We've seen how this plays out. Please don't do it. The people who were hiking beside up Yosemite Falls were telling us how a bear was pushing on their camper the night before, and they had to scare it off. And here I am taking my wife, no skills, no wilderness survival skills at all, wandering into the wilderness where cell phones do not work. 10 miles, I'm on mile 2 and it's already getting sketch. And I had to be honest with myself. I so bad wanted the experience of being up on top of El Cap. But I had to be honest with myself, and I go, I'm not cut out for this. We're not cut out for this. We're fancy walking, and there's no trail. We don't have a GPS. We don't have self-service, and I'm just not going to do this. This feels way too dangerous. And I kind of died a little inside because I was so excited for this moment, but I had to be honest with where I was, my preparation for this, what I was capable of. And I had to admit kind of defeat to my wife, which was kind of embarrassing, but I was like, honey, I think we need to turn around. And here's the deal. Because of that, we had a whole different adventure. That day, instead of trying to climb up the sides of the valley floor the whole time, we went back into the valley and we had this amazing picnic. We had some PB&Js in this glacier lake pond thing that was like crystal clear see-through. It was an amazing day. But I think it would have been an awful day if I wouldn't have been honest with myself. And I think that's life. When we get ourselves into stuff, when we think that we can do something that we actually can't, or we think we're somebody that we're not, we're lying to ourselves. We think something about ourselves that isn't true at all, whether it's what we have tricked ourselves into thinking or other people have told us that aren't true. We need to be honest with ourselves to be able to go on these adventures that God is telling us to go on. And there's a proverb that talks about every path that we go on, we might think it's right, but there's also the chance that when you go on that path that it leads to death. And that's definitely true for me going up the backside of El Cap into bear country, but also it could be just the small decisions that you're making every day. Death to your integrity, death to your innocence, death to your trustworthiness. There's a path that seems right at the time. It's going to feel good right now, but we're not honest with ourselves. We're not willing to turn around and go for the better experience, the true adventure, or a place where we're actually ready and willing to go. And one of the things that we just run into time and time again when it comes to being honest with ourselves is we think that we're better than other people. And it comes out like this. We are quick to judge and point out the things that other people need to change before we are ever willing to make the change ourselves. And we probably do the exact same stuff. Here's a perfect example. Millennials, my age group, we're becoming parents. We're becoming the old grumpies. And here's something you will hear millennials say, my age and older, all the time. Kids these days are always on their phone. They're always on their phone. They don't even know who they are without their phone. Yet here's millennials at the dinner table. Here's millennials in line at Taco Bell. Here's millennials at their kids' football game. Kids these days, they're always on their phone. Okay. Yeah. We do that though, don't we? I mean, think about the peers in your school that you're like, she would wear that? Like, he would act like that? He would say those things? Yeah, but you do too. Just not everybody hears them. Not everybody sees it. Jesus talks about this. He says, why are you trying to get the speck out of somebody else's eye when you got a log in your eye? You got a problem here. You're not being honest with yourself. You're trying to pick out other people's problems, but you're not assessing your situation and saying, maybe I do the exact same thing. This is that same thing that Jesus said. This is in Matthew chapter 7. This is verse 1 through 5 in the Message version. Check this out. Don't pick on other people. Jump on their failures. Criticize their faults. Unless, of course, you want that same treatment. That critical spirit has a way of boomeranging, you see. It's easy to see a smudge on your neighbor's face and be oblivious to the ugly sneer on your own. Do you have the nerve to say, hey, let me get that for you? Let me help you. And when your own face is distorted with content, like you're being mean and judgmental yourself. It's this whole traveling road show mentality, putting on a show over and over again, playing a holier than thou part instead of just living your part, like being humble, looking at your own self and saying, what do I need to change, instead of worrying about what other people need to change. Wipe that ugly sneer off your own face, and you might be fit to offer a washcloth to your neighbor. So we got to be honest with ourselves before we can even be honest with other people. But we're so unwilling to do that because we would have to humble ourselves, look in the mirror, and invite God into it. So we have this problem where we want to judge other people, we don't want to judge ourselves, but it leaves us in this state where we're wandering up the back of El Cap into very, very dangerous territory. How do we fix that? What's the solution to that? It's this. You invite God in to clean the house. You look in the mirror. Because one of the best liars in your life is you, the person in the mirror. Think about the lies that you've told yourself. Think about the lies you've believed about yourself. Think about the things that aren't true, but you think are true. And then invite God in. Jesus is trustworthy in this. He's dealt with so many people who have had messed up lives. Like, think of all his disciples, the people who followed him, the people who he helped. They all had a past. They all had confusions about who God was. They all had things in their lives that could have tripped them up. Yet he pointed them in a better direction. And it was in humility, saying, die to yourself. Wipe the slate clean, start over. There's a psalm that talks about this, Psalm 139. And it reads like this. Psalm 139, 23, 24, Message version. Investigate my life, O God. Find out everything about me. Cross-examine and test me. Get a clear picture of what I'm about. Help me see in the mirror where I'm wrong and where I'm right. See for yourself whether I've done any wrong, God, and then guide me on the road to eternal life. One of the things that we talked about earlier in the message was that proverb about, yeah, it seems like the way that you're going is good, but it actually leads to death. This is inviting God into your life, asking him to show you whether you're right or wrong, and then to put you back on a path that leads to life. If we're going to start this adventure, this choose your own adventure about the decisions that you make in your life, it has to start with being honest with yourself. Just like I was at the foot of a huge mountain wandering 10 miles into the wilderness, I had to stop, I had to pause and go, what am I actually capable of here? What are my true ambitions? Am I heading in a dangerous direction? We need to do that in our own lives too.